One of the things I find strange about modern society is that we are surrounded by technology that most people don't understand. 200 years ago, if you saw someone come up to you on a horse, you would say, "Oh, that's a horse. I know what a horse does. I have a general idea of how a horse works." But nowadays, technology feels like magic. And one of the technologies that is the most pervasive and least understood isn't a device that you carry with you, it's a process. And it's a process that, while not performed by you, directly impacts your life. And that process is called machine learning. You hear the phrase machine learning in the news whenever Facebook does some new nefarious thing, or when you're watching a movie and some sort of artificial intelligence goes rogue and takes over the planet. But I don't think most people, even a lot of computer scientists, have a great idea of what the phrase actually means. And I think there are some concepts inside machine learning and AI that everyone could benefit from understanding to make them better informed about how their data is being used and what they should and shouldn't worry about. And even if it doesn't help you in a practical way, machine learning is one of the coolest inventions humanity has ever come up with. We've taken a rock, infused it with lightning, and taught it to think. And I think that's fascinating. Obviously, I can't cover everything in machine learning in one video. So what I'm going to do right now is give you a brief overview of how this process might work in theory, using an example of something that you're probably familiar with in your day-to-day life, the Facebook newsfeed. I think when people hear the phrase machine learning, they think about what learning is like for them. They think about maybe a toddler learning to walk, or they think about a student studying for an exam and then passing it. And while this isn't exactly how computers work, it is a little bit similar. They don't study, obviously, but they do actually need examples. Most of the time when we're talking about machine learning, people are talking about something called supervised learning. And this is basically the same kind of learning a student might do when studying for a test. Facebook gets a lot of flack nowadays for, the destruction of our society, and whether or not that's deserved, the Facebook newsfeed is a great example of a machine learning algorithm. Facebook wants to know what you will interact with, because when you interact with stuff on their site, you see ads and Facebook makes money. But Facebook can't directly measure what keeps you coming back to the site, or if you had a good time. The only thing Facebook can measure are things like likes, comments, and shares. So they've programmed their newsfeed to try and learn what posts keep you interacting with the site. For this video, we're going to just pretend that commenting and stuff like that doesn't exist, and focus on how you would use machine learning to predict which posts a person would or wouldn't like. Facebook starts off with no idea who you are, and shows you things that it thinks anyone would like. It records the things you do and don't like. Things that you don't like are negative examples, things that do not promote engagement. Things that you do like are positive examples, things that get you engaged in the platform. So it has these two sets, the things you do like and the things you don't. And what it has to do is figure out how to distinguish between the two. Unlike humans, the Facebook algorithm doesn't have a good understanding of what's in a post. When it looks at a post, it can't really easily tell that, hey, this is Max expressing his opinion on video games again, and everyone wants to see that. But what Facebook can do, and can do fairly easily at this point, is tell what kind of post a post is. It can say, hey, that's a meme. Hey, that's I don't know, what else do people post? That's a video. That's an engagement photo. So Facebook has to use context to try and figure out if you'll like a post. It'll use things like the type of post, whether it was posted recently or not, whether it was posted by your best friend or someone you haven't spoken to since high school. All of the different pieces of meta information about the post are used as clues to try and decide if you'll like the post or not. You can sort of think of Facebook like some very creepy robot that really wants to please you, but doesn't really understand human stuff. So it's studying everything you do to try and give you what you like. So here we're going to very loosely follow the thought process of a machine learning algorithm. I'm going to show you some examples of things I haven't liked, and we're going to try and come up with plausible rules that might govern my behavior. In practice, a machine learning algorithm would look at thousands of examples, but let's just look at a few. So here are a few examples. What do you see right away as a human being? Well, you see that I seem to like memes. So if we wanted to recommend stuff to me in the future, we could make a very easy yes or no choice. If it's a meme, show it to me. If it's not a meme, don't. But what if it gets more complicated? What if you, as the algorithm, come across a bunch of memes that I haven't liked? You might modify your model of my preferences to say that, oh, he also doesn't like memes that are old. We can incorporate this into sort of the mental flowchart we're building about me. Getting even more complicated, you as the algorithm notice that I've also liked everything posted by my best friend, even if it was not a meme. So we can once again change our model of my behavior to say that I do also like any post by my best friend. Now that we have this flowchart, we have what's called a model of my preferences. When we see something new and want to decide whether or not to recommend it to me, we simply follow the flowchart, and if the flowchart says yes, we recommend it, and if it says no, we don't. And believe it or not, this is all machine learning is. We don't always build a flowchart explicitly, but we're trying to come up with some sort of model that separates positive and negative examples. So okay, this is how a program might make a decision about what you do or don't like, but how does it come up with this flowchart in the first place? This is where the learning part happens. It starts with all your data and looks at all the possible different starts to the flowchart. Should it begin with post type or how close I am to the poster? Once it's investigated all of the different possible starts, it picks the one that most cleanly divides the negative from the positive examples. After all, if the age of a post doesn't matter to me, why bother including it in the flowchart? Once it's got the first step, it does the same thing for the second, trying to find an attribute that separates all of those examples. It keeps going until the flowchart sorts everything. I know this doesn't really sound that dramatic, but this is all machine learning is. Learning a flowchart is one way to do it, but as long as at the end the machine learning algorithm can separate negative and positive examples, it doesn't really matter how it got there. Sometimes we treat all of the negative and positive examples as points and try and draw a line through them. Sometimes we train networks of artificial neurons to recognize the negative and positive examples. Sometimes we make 100 flowcharts and let them all vote on what the negative and positive examples should be. But it's all the same process. Once you understand what the newsfeed is doing, it's a little easier to understand the position Facebook is in. Their flowchart is just trying to find things you'll interact with, but there's no way for it to know if those interactions are positive or negative. In AI, this is what we call an alignment problem, where what an algorithm optimizes for and what is good for society are different things. And because fighting drives people to engage in the platform, you have an incredibly powerful AI bent on learning all the exact details of what makes you angry. I don't really have a moral here or an answer to how you should feel about Facebook or how you should interact with your newsfeed. I just wanted to demystify what is actually going on there. It's not magic, it's not science fiction, it's really just learning to make flowcharts.